I had my suspicions that this Favo Ultra Light was very good, just really poorly marketed. Let me explain. Good afternoon and welcome to Turbo Tortoise Tech. As I said, in front of me is the Arozzi Favo. Okay, that's actually how you say it, with a bit of an Italian flair. You got to do it because otherwise they'll get very, very upset. Trust me, I'm friends with a lot of Italians. In fact, actually, the majority shareholder for Turbo Tortoise Tech is an Italian himself. So yeah, if I don't Favo every time, I'm just going to get in a lot of trouble. So expect a lot of that. But this, like I said, is really, really good. It was just really badly marketed. So the reason that I say it was badly marketed is because it's got all the right goods and stuff. It just seemed a bit odd when the quoted weight was 104 grams for something that has a honeycomb pattern cut out into it. And that's actually literally what Favo means. It's honeycomb. It's Italian for honeycomb. So they did a good job in naming it as well. But the mouse itself, without the cable, is 74 grams. So they included the cable weight inside of the total weight instead of quoting just the mouse weight. Now, when Arozzi had launched on Evetech initially, I'd actually noticed the mouse, to be honest with you, and that I thought, man, this thing actually looks quite promising. It's got a Pixar 3389, it's got on-run switches, you can do profiling and everything on the mouse, it's got proper macro editing. Actually, one of its key things is going to be its software, but I'll get into that a little bit later. But everything on paper looked pretty good until you read that weight of 104 grams or 105 grams. And I was like, but it's got holes drilled into it. How can it weigh that much? And then upon further investigating, then I found out that, yeah, it was cable weight included. So Arozzi itself normally makes more like chairs and that kind of stuff. And this was their first and so far only attempt at making a gaming mouse. And they've actually done an incredibly good job. I've been using this for about 3 days now. And it's felt very much like home because, well, it pretty much is like home. It's very, very close to the glorious Model O, which will be on your screens now. And as you'll notice, I have used that to the point that I've rubbed off the matte finish and the logo on the side of it. Dimensionally, it's very, very similar to that. It is 5 grams heavier, but you'd be hard pressed to tell me that underneath your hand. If I blindfolded you and used both, they would feel almost identical. Before we get too carried away though, let's go through the physical setup of the mouse and stuff. It's that typical ambidextrous style. It's very reminiscent of Kinzu V2 and of the Kana series, if not quite a bit narrower, especially than the Kana was. I remember that being quite a broad boy for an ambidextrous type shape. It's more similar to Sensei 10 kind of width, or Sensei kind of width at least. Behind the scroll button is a DPI changing button, but then there's another button on the bottom where you can change the RGB lighting without having to install the software, which is pretty good. There's honeycomb pattern all over, independent buttons, thumb buttons are in pretty much the exact same space as the Model O was. A lot of it is quite similar to that. The only thing that's majorly different is the space of the feet on the bottom. It could have been made just a little bit bigger, and I think it would improve the glide effect. Not that I actually felt it or felt it catching on anything. And it would have also been nice to include a spare set of feet in the packaging. The cable as well is a type of ProFlex. It's not quite the same as what you get with the Model O, and it is a little bit thicker than the other ProFlex cables that I have used. There's also quite a cool Arozzi logo in the back of the mouse over here that you can see through the back that then matches with the DPI setting on the front of the mouse. The scroll is independently lit from the RGB ring that you're seeing around the bottom of the mouse. And I have to say, honestly, I think this in black will look absolutely fantastic. Now with that very familiar physical setup, what was it like to use? Like I said, it was like being at home in a lot of ways. It felt very comfortable, very familiar because of that general shape similarity that it's got with the Model O. And the software and the feature set and firmware that's on here is actually superior to anything else that I've seen in this price range because it's got lift-off distance modification. And that little program there is a whole 3 megabytes worth of download, and it's got features that every major brand would normally have on their mouse. They've checked every single box. Macro editor is extremely advanced. You can check the delays between each key setting. You can actually modify those delays. You can modify the order of the keys. You can create the macro and then edit it from there. You can have like almost a variably unlimited amount of macros, and then just super easy to assign them to the mouse buttons as well. The way that it works is very good. It does look a little bit underpolished and a little bit clunky compared to what we're normally seeing, but this is their very first attempt at making a mouse, and you're already at this level. That's really good going. Honestly, my time with the Favo Super Light has basically showed me that it's literally a Model O Plus. It's Model O, but they've got the Pixel 3389 tuned with their own firmware and all of that sort of stuff, and the CPI scaling is 1-for-1. The acceleration rate, everything is perfect. I had absolutely no problems in any game that I played. It worked flawlessly. And this mouse is $900 compared to most that are in this bracket are usually about 1,000, 1,100. It doesn't come with quite as much niceties. Like I say, I think what would have pushed it up even a little bit more for me is just to include a spare set of feet with this would have been nice. But beyond that, it's actually a really good product. The build quality and the plastics and stuff used in it are not quite as good as the Model O though. That has to be said. And that's pretty much the detractions from the product. Everything else is basically 1-for-1. The way the scroll feels, the buttons, the thumb button positioning, the shape, etc. It's really good, really familiar. And I'm actually quite impressed with Arozzi being able to do this for their first time. I would like to see them come out with something just a little bit more unique, like Power Rocket Cone is pretty much only a rocket cone is, you know, shaped in that kind of space or that kind of way. I would have liked to see maybe something with that, you know, like how now the SteelSeries Prime is its own unique ergo shape. That's really important, especially with mice in my opinion, because this is probably the most personal decision you'll make when using a computer. Anyway, that is all I have for you in this review. If you have enjoyed it, please hit us up with a like and subscribe, and I will see you on the flip side.